Morning marketing webcast. And as usual, we're starting off with extreme, interesting topic with, of course, some technical difficulties. For whatever reason, my webcam wasn't responding here. And it was looking at my computer camera, which is just a terrible, terrible, terrible experience. So I wanted to save you from that uh, because it is indeed bad. So happy Flag Day. If you do not know what Flag Day is, I will send a link in the show notes for this. Really, really interesting to watch kind of the progression of the flags throughout several, I'd say generations. I guess you could say generations, yeah. So happy Flag Day to one and all. We have a very interesting topic here today. It is avoid content marketing's biggest mistake. Now, if any of you know me, I am a big proponent of content marketing. In fact, I would argue that all marketing should be content marketing. Any website that you do, any web page that you set up really should be focused on delivering awesome, excellent content. And you have to do that by knowing who your user is and who you're talking to and what the goal is of that conversation, then measuring that goal, right? So many things to think about. Without further ado, let's go into the topic itself. This really came from a Search Engine Watch article by Joe Pulizzi, I believe his name is. He is a writer, obviously, for Search Engine Watch, but he also has a new book out called Content Inc., which he goes through and he has interviewed either companies or individuals, 100 of them, and basically interviewed them and done the research. And he's found some patterns in terms of these companies who have successfully built content marketing strategies. And the biggest mistake he was able to find was they diversified too quickly in terms of their distribution. Now, if you remember the 4 Ps of marketing, product, place, distribution, it's not even a P, but pricing. But that distribution is the actual key. So if you think about content, right? Let me get my marker here. You think about content, you have your wonderful, awesome content that you've just developed, and you may have a video on that. You have really optimized that. You got a great call to action in there, but it'll just sit there unless you do some things with it, right? So, some of those things might be SEO. So you're going to be optimizing that stuff. You're going to be then doing video. So if you did video with it, obviously you have SEO on that, title and things like that. But you can also do paid ads, right? PPC, and you can do that in YouTube. You can do that in Google, right? So you sell product. So you could do in terms of Google Merchant, being able to get your stuff online in terms of Google Shopping, right? Went blank there for a second. You can do social media, right? So social media and all of these things you can go ahead and do to start driving traffic to that. It all comes back to that. Again, we all talk about that one customer, right? Whoever that is. That might be B2B, that might be B2C, but think these are just people making decisions, right? So we need to understand that. His argument is that we do too many of these things. In fact, the typical path looks something like this, right? So you have an enterprise level organization. They say, you know what, the C-levels, the brass gets back from a conference and like, dude, we got to fire up content. So they automatically set a budget for it. They bring all the team members in. They say, let's go do it. All teams going in the right direction, right? So a lot of times the organization is committed. That's the first thing. They're committed to doing this online marketing strategy, this content marketing strategy. The second thing is they do the pre-planning, right? They do that research. They figure out who that audience is. They figure out what content niche needs to be there. And then basically then they get the media channels fired up. So you're talking like the blogs and YouTube and podcast and TikTok and email newsletters and on and on and on and on, right? The average enterprise level organization, 14 to 16 individual marketing platforms. That's too much. It's simply too much. It's a fail right out of the gate. It's absolutely going to be a fail. So if you take a look at some of these companies, I think it would analyze. It was like Fortune, TED Talk. So Fortune magazine, right? TED Talks, online videos. Huffington Post, online magazine, right? but selecting that one key primary platform to work from. Okay. Paluzzi, I'll pronounce his name wrong. I'll just say Joe. How about Joe? Joe believes, and I quote, they didn't diversify immediately, but focused on delivering consistently valuable content, primarily on one channel and one content type. And content type is like the method, right, of how that's actually done. My translation of that, going deep, right? So if you understand, if you've done your market plan, guys, part of the program here is your assumption is that you know how to do an actual market plan, an unbiased, three-legged stool. You've got, I'll use the examples here. Ooh, I've got 3 markers here, right? We always try and get, it's one of those cognitive psychology things. You try to get the philosophical into the real world, right? So we start out with the executive drivers of the company. Right there, they have the red marker, right? They're the who, what, when, where, why, and how. What's their perspective? Where's the industry going? Who's our competitors? What's our product? What's our top 5 product? Where's the industry going? What keeps us up at night? All that fun stuff, right? So you get them in what we call an executive interview. So that is number 1. You can see that, right? Good. So you got that, the executive drivers of the company. What's going on in the brain trust? The second thing is the customer. And that might be a B2B or B2C customer. You need to figure out what's going on in his or her mind. What are their buying opportunities? When they look at this, how do they come in? What do they research when they're there? What keywords? We use Keyword Insight for this. We build out a test. We don't guess. Our agency does not guess which keywords. Google's estimator tools are designed to make Google money, not to help you grow your business. So we use Keyword Insight, blow up massive keyword lists, test that, identify which keywords are indeed the ones we need to go after based on actual traffic impressions, and then go to work, right? So what's in her or his mind? What hurdles are there? You should be talking to your sales teams and coming up with this kind of information so that we understand exactly what this customer is really interested in, how to best serve them, really at the end of the day, how to serve them. But we have to understand what they're interested in, what they're trying to fix, and how we can fix that, what makes us unique to them in that situation. So we need to think about that customer. We use IBIS research data. We use secondary and tertiary data as well. And then we use Keyword Insight to figure out what's going on in terms of that customer. Okay, so that's number 2. The third leg of the stool, nice how they're all standing up. The third leg of the stool is going to be the competition. I guess it's probably cool that it's black, right? Not that they're all evil, but it's kind of cool to think about that. Anyway, that worked out. I'll have to use that more often. So the competition, right? So we build out a massive spreadsheet, okay? And we name the actual companies on the left-hand side, that A column, and then we have the specific interest elements across the top in terms of the columns. So things like number of years in business, number of employees, size of the company, unique value propositions, motto, warranties, unique value proposition. I probably already said that. Specialty areas, products and services, guarantees, associations, anything that makes them different. And then basically we go through and we highlight the areas on that competitive analysis in yellow, real complicated system there, to find out what indeed makes, what makes those companies kind of stand out, right? And then from that competitive analysis, we can then do a better job of aligning, right, the interest of the customer and what they're trying to solve with what we do, the company does, in this case, the client, what they do best with that client. And we know to avoid those other pitfalls and all the hurdles. So that's really, those are the 3 legs of the stool for any of this stuff. That, if you need help with that, we can certainly do that. Okay. But you should be doing that. Joe recommends that you kill some channels, right? You go, okay, well, great. I can kill channels. Out of the 14 or 16 that were up here, which ones do I kill? Real simple answer, ones that don't work for whatever reason. So the 80-20 rule works really, really good here. It generally shows and rears its ugly head often, right? And that might be 17% or 15% or 25%, but Either way, you're going to want to make sure that you look at what's working and what's not, and then be able to just basically scrub the stuff that's not working, because it's just zapping your team of precious time. Okay. Big takeaway. Big takeaway. Think about the user in that experience. So going deep with it, right? So if you're going to select one major channel, do it well and go deep with it. Remember, Amazon for 3 years, Amazon didn't sell anything but books. And by the way, even with books today, like literally I ordered a book on like a Sunday night and it came like Monday at like noon or something, right? Somewhere in there. I mean, that's awesome. Now that their products, they do that 2-day thing, which is great, or even next day in many cases, which is great as well. But the books still tend to be the fastest. It was their core kind of situation. So always, always, always think about that customer experience and then go deep with it. So how we do this, right? Action steps. Identify that target audience. Guys, this comes out of a market plan, okay? Make sure you're doing it. The second component of this is the differentiation. Now, I'm talking about differentiation. This is something our agency probably doesn't do enough of. I always thinking about, when we do a market plan, a lot of times we're focused on, because we've, done the executive interviews, because we've done the customer insight or the customer research, and then we've done the competitive analysis. We often get stuck in that big picture stuff, and we do develop the content elements that are there that we should be, because we have the keyword insight, and now we're developing the content areas that we need to be focusing in on over the next, let's say, 12 months, based on research and data, which is great. But we often miss this differentiation area in terms of actual content distribution. Okay, so trying to figure out, we know we need to do Facebook, and we know that these content elements are there, but does that really answer the question, that content piece that I'm going after? Okay, does it exist in those specific media channels? Maybe that's the best way to say it. So there might be a plethora of YouTube. Let's say topic X was how to shoot videos, how to shoot the best corporate videos. That's one that we've done before, right? The way our agency does it is, okay, we know that that's the right content piece, and we use keyword insight to kind of tell us that. But let's say there's 80 billion different videos on how to do that on YouTube. Well, that's fine, but we're going to be playing in a much fuller pond at this point in terms of competition. So maybe that's not the right area for YouTube in this case. Okay, we don't really look at that, and we need to be doing that, which is something that's important. I think a lot of other companies probably don't do that as well. Third area, so identify target audience, differentiation area in terms of content. Third, primary content platform. Again, looking at which media channels to use. Again, whether it's YouTube or blog strategy or newspapers or online magazine or whatever the case may be, understand what that is and the strategy necessary to do that. I think that's often, Joe actually ends up leaving the strategy part off, but I think the strategy needs to be a part of it, because it really is a bigger picture and a fuller, more comprehensive kind of situation. Because just distributing on social media doesn't mean anything, right? You need to actually have it driven back to that content piece on your website. And then the content type. So if we're going to use YouTube, well, it's obviously going to be video, right? But in terms of email or social media, it might be text and image. It might be video and image, like a video teaser and image. It might be an audio podcast. It might be an Instagram piece, whatever, if it's just pictures. Identify what that method looks like. So there's those 4 pieces that really need to be there. He recommends only diversifying, and this is Joe again. Joe recommends, and there's definitely an understanding that I definitely understand where it is like this. So if you look at Red Bull and these other companies, finding that loyal audience and really having momentum to it, right, allows you to then diversify into other audience groups, right, other media channels. It makes all the sense in the world. I'm actually going to take a slightly different argument and saying, don't throw your eggs in one basket. Okay. We have a new client that had not 1, not 2, but 3 stores on Etsy. And that they were generating almost $30,000 a month, weekly, $30,000 weekly on Etsy through their 3 different brands. They had 3 different brands going on. And if you know anything about Etsy, one of those brands in this case had an EIN problem, like it wasn't a right number or something of that nature. And Etsy flagged it. Well, Etsy will not only flag that account, but also flags these other two accounts. So literally their revenue went from $30,000 a week to like zero. So that's a problem. They realized that that was a problem. They had to build a website, and that's what we're engaged with doing right now for them. But they put all their eggs in one basket. That is the risk of this strategy. You see, by focusing only on one specific platform, okay? Something goes wrong. In their case, it was bad, okay? So I'm going to recommend that you test every quarter. You should never have all your eggs in one basket, period, end of story, okay? That's a general business rule. But at the end of the day, also test. Like literally, most of our clients, when we do a market program, a lot of times we're doing the content piece, and then we're blowing strategy out or blowing content out on every media channel. So that's YouTube, that's Google, AdWords, that is Facebook, that's Instagram, that's LinkedIn in many cases, Twitter, all of that stuff. And it's paid. It's supported by paid media in many cases. The problem, not the problem, if you're tracking everything back to actual revenue, some of those, it goes back to the 80-20 rule. Like, we don't do Twitter anymore, really. Every once in a while, we'll test it. Like every quarter, we'll throw a campaign in there just to test, because we've got a relevant piece of content that people have told us that they love over the last 3 months. And we're going to go ahead and push that piece of content on Twitter just to test it again, just to see if we can get a bump in revenue. Okay. It's worth doing that, you guys. It really is. And people say, well, I haven't really built an audience, an organic audience, let's say in Twitter, because I haven't, let's say, pulled back on those other things. Well, the opportunity is this. Twitter's willing to take your money. Twitter's willing to take your money. So, and they're willing to help you target people. And if that content piece, for whatever reason, was better than the other pieces of content that you pushed out and had more interest, you can test it and see if you can grow that network a little bit and bring that in. So I'm going to disagree with Joe a little bit on that one, but it kind of makes some sense, at least in my brain. So one of the other big takeaways before I leave you is always have a goal, right? Understand who you're targeting, what they're interested in, how can you add value? And I guess that's really the core of what we're talking about here in terms of going deep. Right? If you look at the Red Bull story, and I'll put the link in here to Joe Pulizzi's article. But yeah, go look at that Red Bull story and just realize that they started doing X thing, and then they kind of built upon that, right? And I would argue that the other ones like TEDx and all that stuff were the exact same thing. That they started with a core piece of content and the distribution platform, and then they really added value to that. They went deep with it, right? In terms of email, they were using email properly. They communicated regularly through notifications on those networks. They kept the user very, very engaged in terms of talking to them and speaking to them, and then they grew it from there. So I guess that's the real challenge for us, is to not spread ourselves too thin, you guys, but to really go ahead and really zero in on the right specific content pieces, but also the distribution method that will work best for us, and then really add value in that pipeline. And again, be cautious about throwing all your eggs in one basket. But at the end of the day, I think that strategy could work for you. So I hope you enjoyed today's session. I know I'm challenged by a couple of these areas. We're going to be integrating a lot of those things into our program. Again, we're just like everyone else. We're trying to learn. So if you need help in trying to figure out how to do this better, how to do social media, do a market plan better, to do a content strategy, feel free to go to roibychris.com, schedule a 15-minute complimentary consult. We'll pull up some analytics. We'll look at what's going on. We'll listen to your story, and we'll see a couple of strategies that may work for you in terms of deploying a better business model, so that 2021 can be even more successful than 2020. The other thing to be thinking about too is every single week we do these videos, right? 11 a.m. Monday morning marketing webcast. Subscribe with the link, or go ahead and subscribe using the channel that you're listening to. And we will see you guys back here on Monday of next week. God bless and have a great, great week.